Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Centre. This is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication.
It's over 9,000!
My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll. Don't face me, bro. It's a trap. I'm a fire in my time to
Hey, Charlie, wake up!
Oh God, oh man.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show, airing on Phoenix 92.5 FM and all those wonderful places such as YouTube, Spotify, and of course our own website. I'm Cian, and with me this week once again is Kev. Kev, how are you surviving the most dramatic weekend in recent Irish history?
Well, apparently by not being in my house, because I live out in the sticks, and apparently a thick wind absolutely cripples us. We had to go get dinner because all of our power went out for the day.
You wouldn't just start a fire like old caveman days.
No, I'm renting this place. I'm not risking that. But we had to drive, and we drove through 3 towns, all of which were completely shut off.
Yes, for possible international listeners, we have been hit by the double phenomenon recently of storm, hilariously called Storm Dara. Hi, Dara.
Don't worry, no, this Storm Dara is not a Star Wars rant. Yet.
And also the Late Late Toy Show. 2 exclusively Irish phenomenon, but I believe that you were left without power like in the olden days.
Yeah, for a whole day. We had to drive for like half an hour to get food, and it was like, speaking of like a purely Irish sensation, like a beacon in the darkness. The first light we saw in about 20 minutes of driving through country roads was a big glowing Supermax sign out in Kinnegad, and it was like a beacon from the heavens.
You just lived out your Fallout fantasy there.
It fully was. It was fully end of days. Because, it's the middle of December. It's dark by, 3, you know?
Like these religions start under the tree at Spar.
It was a religious experience. That Papa John's was divine. But speaking about religious experiences, Cian, I've heard absolutely nothing about the toy show this year.
Yes, I'm trying to remember if we've actually covered the toy show before. We've covered Eurovision before, I know. I suspect if we have, that it has involved me being incredibly positive, Dara being at best lukewarm on the toy show. But Kev, as a relative outsider, do you want to cover the basics for anyone who might not have heard of this, outside our Irish listeners?
Yeah, if we got for the international viewers, this is a yearly tradition on Irish national television, where basically what would be like the Irish talk show, like the Irish Late Show, except instead of is it Jimmy Fallon now? Instead of Jimmy Fallon, you get a lad from Leash.
Just randomly pulled off the street, just anyone.
Sometimes it feels like, listen, back in the Pat Kenny, Ryan Tuberty days, it felt like you just roped him off the street some days.
I know, I got a bat for Ryan Tuberty. I thought he was class.
But no, it's like a 3-hour late show that just kind of showcases kind of all the big hot toys that are coming out. And it's a big spectacle. There's musical numbers. It's kind of a Christmas variety show as well as a big advertisement.
It would be, because I have difficulty explaining this to non-Irish people, because it's not like you can win the toys, or if it's some major D23 type thing or something like that,
No, it's
It's
just a big pomp and spectacle. Now, if you get tickets for if you get in the live show, you get a rake of free stuff.
you get
But,
minted. Yes, yes.
but most people absolutely cannot get those tickets. So no,
It's
it's
look,
just
my dad has worked at RTE for all my life, and he's put in for the little raffle to get the tickets
mm,
every time, but he's never gotten them. I do have a few friends who worked on it, who got to be on the set and stuff, like singing teachers and dance teachers and that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
I, despite my many efforts across 3 decades, have never ever gotten to either the toy show or the set. I have been on the TV3 toy show, which is a different bag of cats. But no, I haven't. It's like it's the close. It's more the Irish Oscars than the actual IFTAs. It's
Yeah, I
just
mean, like if you want to
yeah,
kind of go back to it, because it's been a kind of an institution in Irish media for the better part of 40, 50 years now. Like how long was Gay Byrne on the Late Show? It was since then.
yeah.
And like I think what it kind of roots back to is back in the 70s and 80s, we had maybe two TV channels.
Yes.
RTE was one of them. And it was kind of the only thing enjoyable that was on RTE in the
Mm,
middle of December, at the end of
yeah.
November. Um, and then
Yes.
yeah, like it's kind of just become a cultural institution from there. But yeah, no, this because on top of a couple of for a few different reasons, this year's one really kind of landed with no impact. Usually, like there's a good rake of Irish memes kicking around all social
Yeah.
medias afterwards. But this one just hit with an absolute wet fart. And listen, I didn't watch it because I have no power. But and also I'm not bothered. But
Yeah, it should be worth pointing out that the toy show is usually it's a bit like Black Friday. It's usually the last Friday
yeah,
of November, and it had to be pushed back so that we could all do our democratic duty. And having pushed it back, it landed in the weekend of Storm Dara. So I imagine there's rakes of people who didn't get to watch it either.
yeah, and then also because they've replaced the host of the Late Late Show at all
Yeah.
about 2 or 3 years ago. I couldn't even tell you the bloke's name. Pat Keelty or something.
Patrick Kilty, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A fairly I think well liked Irish personality, but not well known. And this would be his second year doing it. And I don't know. There's always been Gay Byrne didn't have it, but Pat Kenny and Ryan Tuberty did, where there was almost a rabid chaos that would ensue as the toy show went on. Because again, this show is like 3 to 4 hours long.
And it's not just 3 to 4 hours long, it's 3 to 4 hours live and with children. There is
Live,
a lot of
actively
potential for things to
moving
go
with
wrong.
children, having so many, and because there's different children showcasing each of the toys. So this
Yeah.
house has to go up and interact with dozens of different children at a given time,
Yeah.
and the toys half the time did not work.
Now, I will say, just to kind of say about this particular toy show, it was good fun. It ran at like a really nice pace. It was done by midnight, which didn't hurt. Like it felt really short in a nice way, but also it was run so efficiently that like there wasn't like as many standout moments. There were like lovely kids. There was one kid called Brian Oak who completely stole my fashion sense, which I appreciated. There was some good like trad Irish rapping, which is always appreciated. And like, I think the only kind of memeable moment was like, typically like loads of these kids got like trips to Disneyland and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And one poor girl who I'm sure she got like rewarded other things, but she was basically an aspiring scientist and she got to meet a real astronaut, and that was all really sweet. And her reward was seeds that had been into space and come back. Which
Your kid
which if you're in the dressing room with the kids who got the trip to Disneyland and you have your little bag of seeds and you can't even plant them because they've been in space and they're special. I'm not sure.
That's it. That's really gonna measure a pre-pour against the kid that got PS5.
If she finds out they're not real space seats, I can't even imagine. And yeah, and
Uh,
it's always because the late late toy show, it exists in that weird space where like Johnny Sexton popped up on it and like Mariah
mm,
Carey did like a pre-recorded message and that kind of stuff. But like it kind of feels like if you get like Ed Sheeran on, it's like almost like brings the value of the toy show down. Like
having
if you
actual celebrity.
yeah, like if you
Yeah.
aim for celebrity and miss, it sort of almost shows the limitations, you know?
Yeah, whereas like it feels right at home when you get somebody like Katie Harrington on.
Yeah, yeah, like local legends, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't mind obviously famous people being on it, but like the more heartwarming moments are like when like, you've got the family on and their dad's off in Afghanistan or something and he pops out of a present and he didn't know he was going to be there. Those are like the better toy show moments. Like, those are,
Or
yeah.
on the flip, or on the complete opposite side of the coin, when they try to go for spectacle and fall so flat in their face. Like,
Have you got an
have you seen
example?
the Lara Croft?
Oh, yes. Well, this isn't a great example of the toy show at its best, but if you want to cringe into the size of a small pretzel, check out the Lara Croft toy show moment with Pat Kenny, where they brought on some unsuspecting kid who, understandably, I'm assuming it's like early 2000s, likes
Oh, like the
video
PlayStation
games.
2 era, yeah.
And they brought out like to be fair, pretty decent Lara Croft cosplayer. Not that we had a word for it back then. And rather than like, maybe playing Time Crisis with her or something like that, or maybe having a fun conversation, they just sort of stand there limply while she poses in for an uncomfortable 3 minutes. And if you want to
It's
be aware of the slow, agonizing process of time, that's the video to go to.
if you want to know what it feels like to just be stuck in time.
But then contrast that with the moments that all the teachers I talk to still talk about, which is just Ryan Tuberty opening a Fanta that exploded, accidentally cursing on air, and the girl he's having at like a teddy bear picnic with losing her nonsense for an equally uncomfortable amount of time.
It's the beauty of a live show. It's
Yeah.
like I'll always give it that. It's anything can happen because they decide to air this thing on live television.
Yeah, because there aren't really that many live things anymore. Like Eurovision is so tightly controlled. I would not even consider it live. Like, like what other like outside like what for you, Kev, what other like live things are there, even globally? Like
Off the top of my head, I'm not a big wrestling fan, but I think that's probably the next like the one I can think of at least is like live pay-per-views.
true, but even
Because
then they're quite tightly controlled, aren't they? Like
yeah, but I think wrestling itself is just chaotic enough that things can completely slip through the cracks.
true. I will say,
But again,
friends of mine
that's
who
the
watch like boxing matches and stuff. I just hear horror stories. I'm staying up till 5 in the morning to watch it on like Las Vegas time, and then the fight lasts 30 seconds, and just like going to bed for an hour, really annoyed, and then going to work.
yeah, no, like it's odd. It's actually it's kind of odd in that because the internet has become so ubiquitous, like with live streaming,
That's true.
with Twitch and that,
Yeah.
where actual kind of mainstream media has almost peeled back from it.
Mm.
Yeah, it's an odd phenomenon.
Yeah, but then I like now I will say this wasn't the most memorable toy show, but it was
Hmm.
great fun. And I will also say uh we watched the sign language one and the sign languagers were on point. I now, thanks to that, know the sign language for Espresso and Nintendo, for which I'm very grateful. Uh so
Oh
like
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, it's good fun. Like I mean it's like you say, it's a weird phenomenon. You can't even like recommend it to people because even if you taped it, it goes out the night and then no one cares anymore. Like.
oh yeah, no, don't rewatch the toy show. No, if like recommendation would be for next year.
Hmm.
If you're recently moved here and you've gotten in with a bunch of like young Irish friends,
Yeah.
get a group together and watch the toy show live. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah, like I tried to look up like a best bits from a few years ago afterwards, and like they're very hard to track down. I wonder if RT is good at archiving things, like, you know.
Maybe, maybe.
But in any
Um,
case, thanks to the power being out, you got to see a different, more global phenomenon. Would you like to tell us?
yeah, yeah. Dara forced me out of my house for the better part of a day. So
The storm.
the storm. No, 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 Kian, the man.
Oh, get hot dogs.
I wish, but no. Um, so in an effort to try and kill as much time as possible, me and my fiance went to cinema and looked for the longest movie we could, and that turned out to be Wicked. Now, I can't remember if I'd made my thoughts about Wicked on air before.
You talked about musicals in London. Was Wicked one of them?
Wicked was one of them. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Which I think, I liked Wicked fine. It was, considering I went to see four musicals, it wasn't the best of them, but it was still perfectly adequate.
Hmm.
I can't remember if I've talked about how I thought this movie was going to be garbage before,
I've
but I
I've
had,
talked before about when it got cut in half. I got concerned. Now,
yeah,
I've been a fan of the musical. It just gave me the Deathly Hallows like alarm bells.
big time. And as I mentioned, I was looking for a long movie. This movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes. Now,
Hmm.
for those that might know, that is a full 10 minutes longer than the entirety of the stage play, including intermission.
Okay.
And this
So
is
yeah,
Act One of Wicked. And
right.
also, on top of that, the lead up to this movie, so there was that, and then the fact that, to be honest, the ads looked bad. There
Hmm.
was something, the way they were edited, the way they were lit, it just looked poor and cheap. So trust me when I say that Wicked's actually really good.
Okay. Well then, what about it? Kind of. Well, first of all, like as someone who's not like necessarily a fan of the musicals, I've heard all the songs, but I haven't like sat down and watched it live. Like, what is special about this adaptation that maybe someone who wasn't a fan of Wicked might like?
It benefits from a lot of things. So the thing is, what the general consensus seems to be with Wicked, the stage play, is that Act One is far and away the better half of the musical.
Right.
Every
As is
all
with
of
quite a lot of musicals, that's the truth, unfortunately.
Yeah, all of the most memorable songs are in the first half, and it's the more concise kind of story.
Yeah.
Because for those of you that don't know, Wicked is a pseudo kind of fanficky prequel to The Wizard of Oz and how the Wicked Witch of the West became Wicked. And
It's based on a novel, but not by the original author. Yes.
yeah, that's right. Like it's kind of fan fiction, but also kind of not. It's not canon to Anne Frank Baum, but
Yeah.
um,
But there are
so
nods. Like she's called Elphaba because that's L. Frank Baum, isn't it?
yeah,
Like it
yeah.
is reverent,
So
is what I'm saying. Like,
oh yeah, like it is clever. So the first half of the play takes place before the events of the Wizard of Oz, and it's about how Glinda the Good Witch and Elphaba basically go to magic college together.
right. How
And
Wednesday.
yeah, and that's very enemies to lovers. Like
Right.
they're not officially a couple, but it's not subtle.
They're not saying they're not a couple.
They're not saying they're not a couple. And like that thing, that's fun, that's enjoyable. And off the top, they did a really good job on the whole of casting this movie.
Mm.
Obviously, the standouts are the two leads in Cynthia Erivo's Elphaba and Ariana Grande as Glinda, which I was watching it and I thought, like, my first thought was, damn, this Ariana girl's really got some acting chops in her. And then I remembered she got her start in acting and then became a musician.
Well, she's one of those, like, she was on Nickelodeon, wasn't she? They kind of
Yeah.
grew up inside that sort of whole family of actors, like,
So it's just been long enough where she hasn't been like kind of a mainstream actor, but no, she absolutely kills it.
Right.
Um,
No, I mean, like,
yeah,
it's not a secret that Ariana Grande, there's very little she can't do at this point.
yeah, 100%. The woman's a goddamn machine.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so the movie actually kind of benefits by being just that story on its own. And the reason I think, and the thing is the the runtime doesn't feel super bloated because the stage play does feel kind of rushed in its own way. It gives a lot of things the room to breathe where it needs it. So a lot more kind of dialogue between her and between Elphaba and Glinda to kind of like establish that relationship. It gives a bit more. I don't know if you know the kind of the whole animal rights activist part of this movie. There's a whole aspect of. I don't know how in the Oz books it is, but before the Wizard of Oz, animals in Oz could speak and were fully sentient. That gradually got like stripped away from them by like a magical force. And in this, it's kind in Wicked, it's kind of like the precursor. Like animals are really starting to kind of like degenerate back to kind of more primal forms. So it gives that a bit more time to breathe. It just kind of like it just kind of like airs things out a bit more, and opens up to have a bit more spectacle with some of the songs. That's another thing the movie does great is it's not ashamed that it's a musical.
Well,
unlike
that's what we
things
covered before on this, that like
Yeah.
a lot of films like the Willy Wonka and the Mean Girls remake and all that kind of stuff, they seem embarrassed to be musicals, and I do think that translates not just in the marketing, but in the way they're visually staged in the movie. Like,
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. No. I talked about the Mean Girls musical. The Mean Girls musical couldn't make up on its mind on if it wanted to be a musical or not. No,
like
this one is
like Matilda was like fully all in on the fact that it was a musical, and like there were like loads of big choreographed numbers. But that's the only one I can think of. Like even The Greatest Showman was a little gun shy in its presentation, and that's fully a musical. Like, you know.
that had the pop music thing, and now it had some circus like it had some kind of circus spectacle things, but it didn't have grandiosity. Like this has full entourage casts doing big choreographed numbers throughout the entire movie. The soundtrack, like the adaptations of the songs in this were great. Like huge chorus sounds. With a big full orchestra. Like it actually just really hit it out of the park.
And what do you like to kind of like zone in on this a bit more? What is it about the way, like obviously I know the musical's great. It's basically like the new Phantom. Like I know that. But like what is it about the way cinematically like these songs, why do they work as a movie thing where other things don't?
I mean, again, I think going back to what I was saying, it fully embraces its fact, and because its world is big and fantastical, it actually, because obviously theater and stage is a lot about interpreting things that can be fantastical. Like, you know, you'll have kind of like big shapes that are meant to interpret big machines, but they can't actually do a big machine on a live stage. This kind of adds form to that. Like, as I said, there are speaking animals in that are on the stage play anthropomorphic, like they're people in costumes that are meant to look like a goat. Yeah. Whereas what kind of threw me, and I didn't realize it until I saw the ad, in the movie, they're CG animals that talk. It's a goat that looks like a goat.
Right. Because that's something I wondered about, because like I love The Wizard of Oz. It's like a brilliant movie. It's one of my favorites. I'm sure that's not an original opinion. But like in it, obviously you've got like actors playing lions, and then mixed in with like real monkeys and all that jazz. Like, you know. So like visually, what I was wondering is, are they gonna go full in an animal as an animal in this version of Wicked? Or are they going to sort of exist in that in-betweeny space and just make that a feature of the world? Like, I think the James... Oh, God, who's the guy who played the young Green Goblin in those...
The James Franco one.
Like, the James Franco one, which really wanted to be Wicked, but was too ashamed, really kind of had that weird in-betweeny, are animals or not thing. And I was wondering how they'd interpret that in this one.
No, they've gone full animals are animals.
So a cat is a cat and a dog is a dog. Okay.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. As I said, this movie, great. Nice, concise. The movie ends, like, defying gravity is the end of the movie. It's big,
it's
spectacular.
Frozen exists. Yeah, completely.
Exactly. So I know, like I think they nailed it. Fine, great. Now they have to make a whole movie out of Act Two. Ian, how much do you know about Act Two of Wicked?
About as much as I know about Act One, which is I know that the witch is like a freedom fighter, but beyond that, very little, frankly.
So Act Two of Wicked primarily takes place in conjunction with the plot of The Wizard of Oz.
Ooh. Okay.
And because they don't have the rights of The Wizard of Oz, I don't know what the rights situation with theater is, but at least in the stage play, it's always alluding to the fact Dorothy is not a character in the theater version, but she's alluded to.
Right.
The house drops on the Wicked Witch of the East, who in this is Elphaba's sister.
Okay.
Also, that's another thing is that the play has a terrible habit of forcing characters together, as in forcing characters to become characters from The Wizard of Oz.
Kind of that Star Wars prequel-y problem where it's like, all right, you got to be Darth Vader by this bit of the movie.
Okay,
come on.
Let me break this down for you. So the
Right.
Cowardly Lion
Right.
is a lion cub that Elphaba rescues from her college from a cage.
Okay.
The Tin Man is the Wicked Witch of the East's husband,
Okay.
who died. Elpha brings back to life, but in bringing him back to life, turns him into a Tin Man.
As you do, yeah.
And the Scarecrow is Elphaba's boyfriend.
I think
Sorry,
the
Glinda's boyfriend, who is deep.
part of any of that is the idea that the Tin Man has a wife.
Well, he doesn't anymore. She got crushed by a house. I'm sorry,
Okay,
no, the Scarecrow.
I get what
sorry,
you mean. That's sort of like we have to shoehorn every things in. Yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, it is significantly short. Like, the first half of Wicked's about an hour 50, an hour 20.
Right.
The second half is, I think, less than an hour, if just shy.
That
second
is
act
the
of
way
Wicked is
most
short.
big mega musicals go. 90-minute first half, kind of 45 to 50-minute second half, because people need to get home.
Yeah. And again, they are going to have to adapt that to a full, at least 2-hour movie, I'd say. By the rate the first half
Revolution situation, I see. Okay.
But what I'm thinking is that they're kind of just going to have to put the Wizard of Oz in this movie.
Well, to circle back to the rights thing, I know that MGM own the rights to the Wizard of Oz, and to circle back to, did you ever actually see Oz the Great and Powerful, or whichever it was?
Oh, I did. It was awful.
Okay.
It was dreadful.
Basically, that was...
Oh, that's Disney.
Yes, but I bring it up because that was the way it is. Because they had the rights to Oz the Great and Powerful. Wizard of Oz is actually the second book in the series. It's kind of a Narnia situation. Where the famous one isn't the first one. So, in that movie, Disney had to work within copyright. They weren't allowed to use certain shades of green. They weren't allowed to use Dorothy. They weren't allowed to use the costume. They weren't allowed to use, the iconic characters. But the world of Oz, the wizard... Maybe it's a little bit like when they tried to do that Tolkien adaptation with none of the Lord of the Rings stuff. So if MGM, who also did James Bond and Rocky and Rakes and musicals, if they've produced Wicked, the movie, yes, they have the right to the Wizard of Oz. If they haven't, no.
It isn't MGM. It's Universal.
In that case, no.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an odd one because then. If they're not but it's really strange. It's I was so happy that Wicked was good, but I cannot fathom how they're going. That second half of Wicked is such a weird, knotted fan fiction of the Wizard of Oz. I just don't know how. And on top of that, I cannot stress enough, all of the good songs are in the first act of Wicked.
Well, again, that's Hamilton has the same problem. It's all the good stuff's up front.
That's it.
The first act, a bit more,
Yeah, the first act has No One Wants the Wicked, Popular, The Wizard and I.
It could be like a Hobbit situation where technically it costs the same amount to film. So no matter what quality the second film is, it'll make the same amount of money and double the profits, like that kind of thing. Like I'm not saying
Oh,
they won't work their hardest to make it good. I'm just saying it may not matter as much, you know.
oh no, it's certainly watched. No, this movie's making millions, but like, but apparently, by all accounts, both Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo are big Wicked fans and like push this movie to be more faithful.
Oh, I'm not
Like,
surprised. The people like I work in drama and like around musical theater people. The people who like Wicked will let you know very, very quickly. It's one of those fan bases, like, you know, where they're fully devoted, like, you know. And I know from working with teenagers and stuff that when this film was coming out, there was reasonable trepidation, you know?
well, that's it. When you see a 2.5 hour movie and you say, I think like Dune has started a precedent where I think it worked for Dune, even though it was a little bit side eye when they said when they ended with part one and they wasn't advertising it.
Yeah.
But they're starting to do that where they won't advertise that it's part one. And is there any reason to need to be? Now, this one they managed to get away with it. They managed to pace it out so that it doesn't feel like a 2.5 hour slog.
Right.
But again, my takeaway has been that I've been pleasantly surprised. This is a very good movie. I'm probably going to watch it again. I have no idea how they're going to achieve a second half. I can't even imagine it.
Well, you know what? I kind of thought like the Dune is a good example because like uh they took the first Dune book and split it into two. But the difference with Dune, I suppose, is that all the kind of more boring stuff in the book is what went into part one. So you can go into part two with, oh, the exciting stuff's coming up. Even, but they found a way to make that interesting. I think I mean, I'm reasonably confident that Wicked 2 will be as good if they've managed to, because like you say, they've taken an hour and a half and made it 2.5, and it's not boring. So that sets the precedence that
Mm,
they can create more material, possibly from the book, in this second film where it really needs it, right?
potentially, yeah. I'm hopeful for it, but I think this feels like more of an uphill battle.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But I'm sure what I'm saying is it's not going to be like The Hobbit, where like, you know, they just chop it into three bits. Because
No,
I'm sure they're not gonna half-ass it, like.
no, but I wouldn't. You know what? I'm making my call, my called shot here. The second part of Wicked is going to end with defying gravity again.
Did they have, I mean, you're probably right. Maybe like sung by who's the good witch? Galinda, a sad piano version of it, something like that, you know.
Maybe
Ariana
get
Grande did the
Ariana to
Christmas
sing.
hit,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. Now, I suppose my question is, whenever they do a musical like this, like a Les Mis or a Cats or something like that, they always come up with a brand new song just so it can be an Oscar contender, even though it isn't deserved. Did that happen here?
I don't know. Actually,
Well,
not that
that's
I've.
fair. They're usually quite forgetful, so
That's yeah. No, like I'm looking at as far. I'll have to like compare it to the the actual thing. I don't. I think all of the music is part of the play.
right.
Like none of them felt out of place,
Okay.
and because I know exactly what you're talking about, and they do. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. And the songs they do right usually feel completely shoehorned in.
Yeah, they're usually like a
I
minute and a half or something, like, you know.
Yeah. Do you
The
think?
composers haven't worked in like 30 years. You can sort of tell it doesn't fit. Like,
Do you think? Because do they have to? Are like if they're adapting a stage play, does it have to be an original score?
it has to, like, you can't take something that was on the stage, put it in a movie, and then, like, say, to use Cats as an example, put Memory in as, like, the contender for best song. You can't do that.
Okay, so they can't they
It
can't just
has to
put
be
Defying Gravity in.
relatively original.
Okay.
You can't also like say smash two songs together from the original play and call it new. Like in Les Mis, they have a really pointless song where Hugh Jackman sings to Baby Cosette in the carriage, like all that. The Cats as musical ghost. It has to be new in order to be an Oscar contender. And if you're making a musical, the best song category is the only place you're going to get noticed. Like, you know.
Like I'm looking at the cast recording of Wicked, and they're all there. Yeah, no,
Well, good
there's
for
no
them. It means that they're not like kind of like they're staying faithful to the musical. Like, you know.
yeah. There's like one. It's kind of half. You know what? Now that you might actually, they're okay. They might do
Oh,
one.
no. Okay, go on.
It's not a song per se. It's on the soundtrack. It's funnily enough, it's actually neither Ariana Grande nor Cynthia Erivo. It's Peter Dinklage,
Okay.
where he is the goat man, kind of talk singing about
Right.
the degeneration.
Okay,
I
well
don't know.
that doesn't really that's not the same thing though.
No.
Like they're
That's
not
like
going to send Peter Dinklage to the Oscars dressed like a goat. I'm talking
unless
like the one in Cats was like a Taylor Swift composed song. Like it's not what's
yeah,
not
no. There's no top 40 pop hit. Just
Okay.
No. Just it's the one I'm looking at the track list for the sound for the movie,
Mm,
comparing it to the track list to the stage play. And it's the only one that's not on the stage play.
okay. And even then it might be one that like maybe didn't make the original cut of the musical.
Yeah.
Something like that. You know, I'm willing to believe that. But is there anything you want to say about Wicked before you get your rage on for Nintendo?
Just I really was like, if you had any trepidation, I did too. If you like Wicked, it's well worth it. Also, again, just to go back to the casting, they couldn't have cast anyone better for the Wizard than Jeff Goldblum. Like,
I was about to ask, how is he in the part?
because if you want a weird, lonely man who's also kind of evil, but also kind of esoteric, it's just him.
It more so than Zeus. It does seem like the part that was made for him, doesn't it?
Yeah, like it's like you can tell he's putting on the pomp and circumstance, but he's also to his core a snake oil salesman. It's perfect. It's absolutely
I can totally
perfect.
imagine a George Lucas style re-edit where they put him in the original Wizard of Oz. I'd have to change very little. It's like, no, I
No.
am not a bad man. I mean, I'm not a good man, but I am a wizard.
That's yeah, and I think there's gonna be a lot like he's not in a lot of this. He's only in the back like 20 minutes because of the way that's structured. But
Well,
I think
again,
we're gonna
good. Like, you know,
yeah.
not too much of things, you know.
No, but that's the again, second half of Wicked is a lot more of that. I think you're going to have a lot more of him being kind of a scoundrel.
Well, good. Give us something to look forward to, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, as you alluded to, turns out Nintendo don't always make good games.
Completely swerving away from all the happy good times of music
How
and theater.
yeah. Did you
Go
know
on.
about this Mario and Luigi Brothership game?
I'll be honest, no, because like periodically Nintendo, like I know they released a Princess Peach game a few months ago,
Hmm.
and there was like another Mario and Luigi thing before that. Like I will only if it's download, I will only wait until the sale's on. So I miss
Yeah.
quite a lot of these big releases, including the Zelda ones. So I've no idea where this falls in the recent highs and lows of Nintendo's history.
Okay. So this actually there's a bit of a lineage here because this is part of the Mario RPG kind of genre. It's not like
Oh,
flat.
like Paper Mario.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
like
the funny
those. Yeah.
so a funny thing, back around the kind of the GameCube era, there was the Paper Mario games for the N64 through to the
Mm.
GameCube. They were the turn-based RPGs. At about the GameCube to Wii era, Paper Mario kept its turn-based RPG mechanics, but kind of went off in very gimmicky directions,
Okay.
where they would always kind of be centerpieced around kind of like one big gimmick mechanic that would kind of overshadow the turn-based RPGs.
Right.
Whereas on, I think the handhelds at the time started getting the more true to form Mario RPGs in the Mario and Luigi series. Admittedly, I haven't actually played any of them.
Okay.
But the likes
I played
of
Paper Mario.
Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, I think it was a DS.
Oh, those kind of yeah, gotcha.
Highly critically acclaimed, but not very well known because they were on the handhelds.
Right.
So I think it's been about good over 10 years since the last Mario and Luigi game, So, cut to this year. Nintendo have been actually on a spate of kind of going back to them because I think end of last year they remade the Super Mario RPG,
The Thousand Year
and
Door.
then no, the other one, the Square Enix one,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
for the Nintendo 64. But as you say, then later this year they re-released the Thousand Year Door, the Paper Mario one.
Okay.
Now I didn't play the Mario RPG one, but I'd heard so much good about Thousand Year Door. I picked that up earlier this year and was bowled over. That game is
Great, isn't it?
great.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And you know
Like-
what? I'm gonna make your day here because the one before it is available on the, I think, Nintendo 64 app. There is a Paper Mario game hidden in the sort of Nintendo Switch library that I think is equally good.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, no. So no,
I'll find out which one it's on.
yeah. So like it bowled me over. I was so enamored with it. And the thing is that they obviously planned it where a week after that came out, and people were like this got a lot of press. Like people were like, man, this game was really, really good, and it's delighted that like we can get it on a modern system. They announced that at the end of the year, by now, we would be getting a new Mario and Luigi game, a new Mario RPG.
Yes.
And so I was like, great, perfect. Like I bought, between that and the Zelda game, I bought the vouchers and was like, okay, one of them's going on the Zelda, one of them's going on the Mario thing. That's perfect. Great. Smash cut to now. And I've made about 20 hours into this Mario and Luigi brothership, and I've put it down.
Okay, well, first of all, yes, just double checked it there. The original Paper Mario is currently on the Nintendo 64 library on the Nintendo Switch, like circle of things. It's well worth playing. But secondly, first of all, what's wrong with it? And second of all, how did you make it 20 hours in if there's something wrong with it?
So, okay. I think best place to start is what made the likes of Thousand Year Door good.
Right.
And aside from to kind of get the thing out of the way, both of them have two very distinct art styles. Paper Mario has the 2D papercraft art style that's gorgeous. Mario and Luigi doesn't. It's much more of a stylized 3D, but a kind of a plain 3D in comparison. So that it's different, but the Paper Mario game does look better. Paper Mario was known for taking the kind of the very basic concepts of Mario's World, the Mushroom Kingdom, and just kind of expanding on them and just making really like sharp, witty writing about them, while also kind of giving us new things.
It's worth pointing out these games have writing, which is not to say the other Mario games don't have like plots and stuff, but like dialogue and plot twists. Usually Mario's are kind of essentially get to the top of the mountain games, you know.
Exactly, yeah. So like I wasn't expecting Shakespeare, but I was expecting, just kind of like at least neat writing. Where in comparison, Brothership takes Mario completely out of the Mushroom Kingdom, throws him in a whole new world where, and I kid you not, he has to help electrical plug socket people try and reconnect a bunch of islands on a boat.
Okay, well, I mean, it's not the weirdest. This is a world of angry mushrooms trying to kill you. Like, I mean, I'm not going to start quoting realism, but it seems odd.
No, but like, given that, even that kind of strangeness, no, I couldn't name you a single character. None of them have definable traits.
Okay.
And you meet a lot of them, and they spend so much time telling you their story, and none of it matters. And the game keeps stopping you to tell you more and exposit more when you just want to go and hand in a quest, and it just keeps stopping you. And like it's so many just small design choices that like stack up, because the entire one of the big premises is that you're on this large sailing ship and you have to sail through the islands. You have to discover the islands. So the ship is kind of moving at a kind of a real-time speed. And the idea is that you can go and do side quests and go shopping and that while the ship is sailing to the next island. But the problem is they don't implement it very well, so you get everything done, and you just have to wait for the ship to move.
How Final Fantasy 15? Wow.
Yeah, and again, the game just keeps stopping you to tell you more while you're just trying to get to the next thing. It's just dull.
So basically, between the dialogue stuff stacking up, the backstory,
Yeah.
and the waiting around for the ship, it's basically making you wait in between segments of gameplay.
Yes. And that wouldn't, and listen, that's not great, but it also doesn't help. The gameplay itself is not great.
Well, what
To
doesn't work?
go back, okay, to go back then to the Thousand Year Door. So, back, I think even from the inception of the Mario RPG genres have an interesting case of turn-based mechanics where on your turn, when you attack, if you time a button prompt at the right time, you'll do bonus damage.
You'll get like a second hit or something. Yeah,
You'll get
yeah.
like a second hit, and then when the enemy attacks you, you'll have a chance to like guard or counter and take no damage and deal damage.
Yeah, so it's
And
not
again,
like the Final Fantasy thing where it's just turn, 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 turn. Like,
yeah, it's fairly active, it's fairly kind of intuitive. And again, Thousand Year Door, it's really well implemented there. It's snappy, it works. Brothership has that, but the game itself is just not responsive.
what do you mean?
Like there's a stiffness, there's a delay.
Hmm,
Like
that's very peculiar.
no, it's not like a choice. It's just poorly designed.
Okay.
Like you'll have the one that got me, and it's happened more times than I don't think it's a skill issue. Because, just like start a battle, you'll usually jump on an enemy. Mario, there's a delay and a kind of a sluggishness to how Mario jumps, but the enemies themselves are incredibly quick and snappy. So that, like, by the time you realize you need to jump, the enemy's already hit you.
Okay. This kind of is, I'm getting flashbacks to when they released Kingdom Hearts on the, what was it called?
Yeah.
Cloud storage. And
Yeah.
but the enemies wouldn't. So you'd be kind of playing at two different game speeds, like.
Yeah. Well, no, that at least had that was a technical fault where you were trying to stream that game over an internet connection. This is a game that's downloaded on my Switch. This is just a poorly made game.
Purpose.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is the game they decided to launch. No, and to go back to answer your question earlier, the reason I made it 20 hours is because the Switch is just handy to tinker around with while I'm watching things.
Yeah,
I wanted to give the game benefit of the doubt, and also I had several hours of YouTube videos to watch over the past few days that I just it's something to do with my hands. But at a certain point, I had to pay more attention to the game that wasn't working than the things I was watching. So no, it's been put down now. I'm sick of it.
Are you gonna go like? Was this a cartridge, by the way? Was it download?
No, it's download.
Are you gonna go the extra mile and actually like uninstall it?
Yeah. No, I have better things to do.
I did that for the Demon Slayer game, and I felt so hollow doing it, but also
no, I have so much to do and very little time to do it.
Yeah,
I'm getting older. I don't. Yeah, like if I don't enjoy something, I can't. I just have to not play it.
but see, I'm doing the same thing, and I was worried it was like an attention. Can't even say it. An attention span thing, or is it like my standards are rising, or something like that? You know.
I mean, there's probably a bit of both. But no, I think I want a pretty thick skin for this. But no, the game's just badly designed. I just don't want to play it, and there's nothing getting me through it because I don't care about the characters. But because of that, I'm now playing a very good game in that I've finally gotten ready to play Chrono Trigger. And if you want a very good RPG, Chrono Trigger is great.
God, I haven't played or watched a single thing you've talked about tonight. But I know that like this is like one of those foundational RPGs that's inspired by likes of like the later Final Fantasies and that kind of stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know the exact timeline, but I think it came out either just before or just after 6.
Yes, basically there were two, because I'm a big Final Fantasy nerd. Throughout most of the 90s, there were two Final Fantasy teams that were simultaneously running side by side, so that like you wouldn't have to build a game from the ground up that would take 3 years. That's why you end up with 3 Dawn Light Warrior games and 3 complex novel games. But basically, my understanding is that a lot of the team of Final Fantasy VI were working on Chrono Trigger simultaneously.
Yeah, so it probably came out about the time of five, but
Yes,
so you have
yes.
like the crack team of like the guys that would make Final Fantasy VI, but also having your lead producer be Akira Toriyama, the guy that made Dragon Ball.
Right. You have me
Um,
hyped.
and it's not a complex RPG, but it's just so razor honed to
Mm.
be so enjoyable. And it's like because the main hook of it is that as opposed to having like a huge expansive world that you like get in an airship and fly around, you're mostly confined to like one small continent. But but as the game goes, you flit through time in that continent. So you're in
Oh, so
like
it's a bit like an Ocarina of Time thing.
yeah, exactly. Actually, very similar. So you'll start off, kind of in like late medieval stages. The first place you go is like 400 years earlier.
Hmm.
As the game goes, you'll end up in like caveman time, 65 million years in the past.
Right.
Um,
The
and then
environment
you'll
stays the same, but time itself changes. Like,
yeah, well, the environment changes, but also like it's very much the same landmass you're on,
that's what I
and
mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and you'll flit to like 3,000 years in the future after the apocalypse has happened, and
Mm.
it's a like techno ravaged wasteland,
Mm.
and because of that, you're gathering party members from all of these different disparate pieces of time. So then your party looks like a Goku looking swordsman, a cave woman, a robot, and a frog with a sword.
Yeah, you know what? I don't get mobile games very often, but you're starting to sell me on this.
No, that's it. Like because I don't think it's on any like the major consoles right now, which is a giant shame because it's a
It
classic.
seems like
But
leaving money on the table for Nintendo not to do this. I mean, they did the Tactics Ogre, which is what led to Final Fantasy Tactics, so like there
yeah,
is precedent for it, like.
unless they're just like waiting for a remaster or something. But the base version of the game is available on like mobile phones and PC,
Mm.
and it's so worth it. I don't think it's terribly long. I think like at a glance when I googled it, it was like
Mm.
25 hours to beat the whole thing. I'm about halfway through it, and I've been taken away with it for like a day or two. It is such a blast, and although I haven't played any of the early Final Fantasies, we've talked about it enough. I think this is absolutely up your alley, Ian.
I've been waiting for the opportunity. Like I purely for the reason that my phone is filled with like pictures of my children and stuff like that. I
Well,
don't trust
actually,
any device to be able to carry a full game of any kind.
well, actually, if it happens that Chrono Trigger is just a bit much for your phone to carry, here is a game I think your phone will do wonders at working.
Oh yeah?
It's a new mobile game called Pokemon TCG Pocket. Do you remember? Do you remember back in the old days when we were young, when we were free, the Pokemon card game?
I do, of course, and I remember the element system being very confusing.
Well, they've put this on your phone now, Kian.
Okay, because I want to stress in the Nintendo library that the Game Boy Pokemon card game is on there, and it is as confusing as I remember it. Have they changed
Now,
anything?
I think so because I've been playing this for about a day or two. It's as much of anything. It's a simulator of collecting booster packs and opening cards.
Well, that's fun. Okay, that I can get
Yeah,
behind.
and then in that there's a whole game battling system, like card battling system.
Hmm.
That's very streamlined. All you have to do is add an element to your card and attack, and that's the pretty much the entire game. And like it tutorializes all of that for you. But I've been having a blast because it is just the entire consensus of this is just you open up your phone, open a booster pack, and fill out your card collection.
Well, I will say that is most of the Yu-Gi-Oh games, and that is delightful too.
It's
Also, I
really,
just want
really
to
fun.
Yeah, and before, because we've got a minute and a half left, I just want to
Yeah.
say, to segue back to what you're saying, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is also available on the Game Boy Advanced Nintendo Switch library. So if you want something
Yes.
cleansing, you know, of that and Paper Mario, both in the library, I'm assuming you're already paying for. Like, get some of
Yeah,
your money back in that respect.
I'll see. Now, actually, I want to do my due diligence here and point out. So with Pokemon TCG Pocket, just before we wrap up, I do need to point out this is a free mobile game,
Okay.
so it does have microtransactions. Now, so
Well,
far as
you can't drop that with 1 minute and like have that rationally make sense.
this is more just kind of my due diligence. The game is very, very good at doling things out, but it will always give you the option to buy more.
Yeah, if you are someone who thinks that you wouldn't trust yourself with a game that is tempting you to spend money under the guise of being free, that's a good warning to put out. Yes.
Yeah, no, just it is there. Otherwise, if you have that sort of like self control, if you know you're that about yourself, it's a blast of a game. It's very, and it does it. At least in this early stage, it's been very generous with things. But
Lovely.
if you're very tempted to want to pay for things and you can't, avoid it. It's like any kind of mobile gotcha game like that. It's one of them.
Yeah.
But it's a very good one of them if you have like the stomach for it.
You have 5 seconds to wrap up and do the socials and all that, Kev. I believe in you. Go.
Okay, well, if you enjoyed us here, thank you for listening. You can find us, of course, on our YouTube channel at nerdtoknowmedia.com, along with truly thousands of hours of content, with our entire backlog having been uploaded there. So please go to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, check out the videos there. You can also find out the rest of our shows and our socials on our website at nerdtoknowmedia.com. There, of course, you can find our Patreon. If you would like to support us and what we do here, we would really appreciate it. And if you would like to hear more from us, you can check us back with us here next week. Isn't that right, Keane?
That's right. Sorry, I was timing you. That was very impressively speedy.
I've been doing this for years.
I've been doing it longer than you. Now we're over time. Okay, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back probably with some Christmas nonsense of some kind next week. Until then, I've been Kian.
I've been Kev.
And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.